Chapter 470. The wind attribute ghoul faced Immorse with a mocking smile and looked at Immorse. It spoke in a human voice. You are very strong. You are the strongest human I have ever seen. Although your aura is only that of a level 5 Grand Desolate Master, you are much stronger than those Grand Desolate Masters. But so what? My wind attribute is formless, and ever-changing. You can't kill me nor can you avoid me. I can't beat you but I will annoy you to death. You can teleport? Sorry, I can too. Furthermore, I can track your aura. Wherever you teleport to, I'll teleport there too. If you go to the sky, I can go to the sky too. If you go to the ground, I can go to the ground too. Hehe, so today either you die or you go crazy. Ah. The ghoul's laughter sounded ethereal, sometimes far and sometimes close. If an ordinary person saw the ghoul's godlike ability and heard its words, even if they didn't collapse, they wouldn't be far from it. However, Immorse smiled faintly. He asked calmly, "What if I go to another world?" Hearing this, the ghoul laughed. "I will go to that world with you." Then he continued to tease, "I have been to the other world you mentioned. There was once a grand desolate master of the blood world who was frightened by me and teleported back to the blood world. I followed his aura and instantly followed him to the blood world. In the end, I killed the Grand Desolate Master in front of the tens of thousands of vampires in the blood world. What could they do? They could only watch, huh?" At this point, the mutated ghoul's laughter was filled with pride. The blood world was a place that even the people of the Flaming Continent didn't want to mention. If the creatures there rushed to the Flaming Continent, they could cause a devastating blow to the Flaming Continent. And this ghoul could go to the blood world for a stroll and even kill the Grand Desolate Master of the blood world. This was indeed enough to make him proud. However, Immorse didn't care about this at this moment. He smiled faintly and said, "Then follow me." As he spoke, his mind moved. He disappeared from where he stood in an instant. The next moment he appeared in the miniature world. Almost at the same time, the ghoul followed Immorse into the miniature world. Furthermore, the instant it appeared, it had already condensed a wind blade. The wind blade was completely invisible as it flew towards Immorse from a distance of 50 meters. In fact, Corpse Ghost had been waiting for this moment. After many battles, his combat experience was extremely rich. He knew that after a person completed a teleportation, there would be a 1-second pause period known as the recombination period. Wormhole teleportation used advanced technology to break down the human body into molecular form. Then, through the wormhole, they would be teleported to the coordinates and reassembled. In the process of reorganization, one's thoughts were somewhat chaotic. This was the best time to attack. Therefore, as long as he could confirm someone's aura, he would follow that person and teleport to the coordinates. Although his success rate wasn't 100%, at least he had never failed. However, this time, when the wind blade was less than a centimeter away from Immorse's eyes, it suddenly stopped without warning. Seeing this, the wind attribute ghoul couldn't help but be shocked. This kid actually reacted. What was going on? Soon the surprise in his heart turned into horror. Because the wind blade didn't just stop. Instead, it turned around and quickly attacked him. It wasn't just this wind blade. Around him, in the spherical space with a radius of 50 meters, there were actually tens of thousands of wind blades. They all flew towards him. How was this possible? Could this kid also be a mutated wind attribute desolate hunter? It seemed that he had underestimated this kid. However, so what if he underestimated him? This kid obviously didn't know much about the wind attribute. The wind attribute was invisible and formless. Tens of thousands of wind blades wanted to kill a wind attribute powerhouse? Thinking of this, he teased, "Let me tell you what it means to be formless and formless." As he spoke, he didn't dodge and directly stretched out his hands. He opened his arms and welcomed the tens of thousands of wind blades. Then, pew! The first wind blade instantly pierced his chest. The smile on the ghoul's face instantly froze. Why didn't his formless and formless technique work? However, he didn't have time to understand. Poo. Hundreds and thousands of wind blades pierced into his body. He was almost directly dismembered by the wind blades. No, it couldn't be called dismembered anymore. It was called mincing. He didn't understand. He didn't understand why his formless and formless technique, which had always been successful, had failed at this moment. Before he died, he raised his head to look at Immorse, who was not far away, in confusion. He saw that Immerse's face had an indifferent expression that he had expected it. He said 8 words, "Welcome to my world." In the next second, pew 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 pew. The ghoul's consciousness was directly minced into meat paste. As for his consciousness, it disappeared as well. Following Immerse to the miniature world was the biggest mistake he had made in his life. In this world, Immerse was the creator. Immerse was God. He was an omniscient and omnipotent supreme existence. No matter how strong you were in the outside world, you could destroy the universe with a single punch. But in this world, Immerse could destroy you with a single thought. Immerse had once wondered whether he could put Happy Emma and her son into micro-world, and whether he could put his enemies into micro-world as well. But the answer given by the system was frowny face. Before the miniature world evolves to a strong enough level, you can't put the enemy in. Unless the enemy is willing. Coincidentally, this guy was willing to do it today. On the grass, Happy and Emma weren't surprised to see Immerse kill a strange guy. They just prepared the bedding for Immerse. They knew that it was time for Immerse to rest. At this moment they killed the wind attribute ghoul. Immerse said in his mind, "System special event sign in." The system's voice quickly sounded frowny face sign in successful. Sign in event, killed wind attribute ghoul. Sign in reward, 1 ghoul servant. In the next moment a ghoul appeared in front of Immerse. This ghoul looked exactly the same as the ghoul he had just killed. The difference was that this ghoul didn't seem to have any thoughts, just like a dead person. However, the system prompted frowny face ghoul servant has no consciousness and will only act according to its master's orders. It is 100% loyal to its master. At the same time, the system also pointed out that this ghoul servant was a wind attribute ghoul. It had all the skills of the wind attribute ghoul from before. Chapter 471. The ghoul servant was the same as the ghoul from before. In terms of cultivation level, it was equivalent to a level 5 desolate hunter. It didn't look too strong. But its skills were indeed very intimidating. And it was 100% loyal to Immerse. Therefore it should be of great use in certain situations. Next, Immerse rested in the miniature world for another 2 days. Then he continued to hunt ghouls in the ghoul fire swamp. It took them another 5 days to kill all the ghouls in the unforgiving evil ghost fire swamp. At this time his kill points had reached more than 360,000. However, Immerse was still not satisfied with this. It had been half a month, but he had only gotten more than 100,000 kill points. It was a little slow. So he didn't waste any time in other places. Instead he went straight to the Yama forest with the most mutated desolate beasts. Of course, the mutated desolate beasts and ghouls along the way didn't escape his claws. When he reached the Yama forest his kill points had increased by more than 20,000. It had reached 380,000. The Yama forest was the largest forest on the infernal Python star. Its area occupied almost 1/10 of the entire infernal Python star. In this forest, there were hundreds of thousands of mutated desolate beasts. And in this forest there were more than 300 kinds of snakes. Most of these snakes were giant pythons. And without exception all of them were highly poisonous. Therefore the Yama forest could be considered a veritable forest of giant pythons. For humans this was a forbidden area. Even if a grand desolate master came he would only dare to stay here for a short while. Of course grand desolate masters rarely came to this planet. At this time, Immerse came to the sky above the forest. His draconic psyche spread out 500 kilometers. After a moment of investigation, even he couldn't help but sigh. This Yama forest was definitely the richest and most dangerous forest he had ever seen. If one didn't have strong telekinesis, coming here was almost equivalent to suicide. The species here were rich and there were many of them. He moved his mind. Bang 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 bang. Within a radius of 100 kilometers, all the mutated desolate beasts exploded. Bang 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 bang. In just 10 seconds, all the mutated desolate beasts within a radius of 100 kilometers exploded into a bloody mist. Therefore in these 10 seconds, within a radius of more than 100 kilometers, all the trees, ground, rocks and rivers were dyed red. A thick layer of blood mist enveloped the area of more than 100 kilometers. At the same time in Immerse's mind, the kill points were also increasing rapidly. With just this attack his kill points had increased by more than 5,000. His speed was a lot faster than when he was at the Will-O-Wisp swamp. He continued to fly forward as his dragon consciousness continued to bombard these mutated desolate beasts. Bang 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 bang. Behind him he left behind a trail of blood mist that was 200 kilometers wide. As for the infected creatures in the surroundings, they would rush over once they smelled the stench of blood. Therefore Immorse did not have to waste any more effort to travel. Even if they stayed where they were, there would be mutated wild beasts and infected creatures constantly swarming towards them. Just like that, in just a minute Immorse had gained more than 60,000 kill points. In just 1 hour he had gained more than 300,000 kill points. 300,000 per hour was still acceptable. Just like that, in less than 3 hours, Immorse's kill points had reached 1 million. The system's notification sounded in his mind. Frowny face. Kill points. 1 million. Can be upgraded. Upgrade now. Seeing this, Immorse felt a little regretful. If he had known that it was so easy to gain kill points here, he would not have wasted so many days in the will-o-wisp swamp. Immorse nodded. Upgrade. The system's voice sounded again. This upgrade will take 12 hours. Please find a safe location as soon as possible. Immorse was a little dissatisfied. In the past it took 5 minutes to upgrade. Why did it take 20 hours this time? The system's voice sounded quickly. Because the host has consumed a large amount of dragon consciousness, it will have a huge negative impact on the brain. Therefore you must rest as soon as possible to recover your dragon consciousness. Immorse nodded. Indeed, his dragon consciousness was almost depleted and he needed to rest. With a thought he returned to the miniature world. Consuming a large amount of dragon consciousness was very tiring. Immorse kept using dragon consciousness to kill thousands of mutated desolate beasts was even more tiring. He slept for 2 days. When he woke up 2 days later, Immorse was still a little groggy. Rubbing his sleepy eyes, it took him a full minute to figure out where he was. He yawned and washed his face. Then he suddenly remembered that before he went to sleep he was upgrading. Thinking of this, he suddenly quivered and completely woke up. In his mind he pounced on his attributes. Name, Immorse. Level 6 Desolate Hunter. Level 10 Long Xianxia. Immorse could not help but let out a faint smile. He had finally upgraded. At the same time the kill points in his mind had a new change. Kill points. 0/10 million. If he wanted to upgrade again he would need 10 million kill points. But in this Yama forest it was not difficult to collect kill points. He ate the food that Emma brought over and rested for more than half an hour. Then he left the miniature world and returned to the Yama forest. In the 2 days he rested, the smell of blood from before had attracted a large number of mutated desolate beasts. With Immorse's current dragon consciousness, he could only kill the mutated desolate beasts that were level 6 and below. But the lower the level, the more mutated desolate beasts there were. So there was no need for him to pursue killing higher-level mutated desolate beasts. Bang 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 bang, 10 seconds. Just one hit. Within a radius of 100 kilometers, all the mutated desolate beasts that were level 6 and below were killed by him. In his mind his kill points instantly skyrocketed. Kill points. 73,321 million. Previously, one hit could increase his kill points by more than 5,000. Now one hit was more than 7,000. Then Immorse slowly flew forward. As he flew he kept killing these mutated desolate beasts. In an hour his kill points had reached 500,000. In this day, excluding the 2 hours of rest, he had gained more than 5 million kill points. Then, in order to recover his dragon consciousness, he hid in the miniature world and slept again. On the 3rd day he gained almost another 5 million kill points. In his mind the system's prompt sounded again. Kill points have reached 10 million. You can upgrade. Do you want to upgrade now? Immorse nodded. Of course. The system's voice sounded again. This upgrade will take 24 hours. Please find a safe place to upgrade as soon as possible. And so, Immorse returned to the miniature world again. This time he slept for another 2 days. After 2 days he woke up. He looked at the stats in his mind again. Name, Immorse. Level 7 Desolate Hunter. Level 10 Long Xianxia. Chapter 472. Only 9 days had passed since Immorse came to the Yama forest. In 9 days he had risen 2 levels. He had already reached the level of a level 7 Desolate Hunter. If the other desolate hunters knew about this speed, wouldn't they die of jealousy? He went to the personal reservoir to check on the sea dragon clone. Sure enough, the sea dragon clone had also risen 2 levels. It had reached the level of a level 7 desolate beast. It was equivalent to a level 7 grand desolate master. And with the strength of the sea dragon clone, it could easily crush a level 8 grand desolate master. If Immorse returned to the flaming land now with the sea dragon clone, he should be able to stand at the top of the continent. Even if there were some unknown old monsters on the flaming land, they should not have reached level 9. According to the information Immorse had in the entire flaming land, there had not been a level 9 grand desolate master in 1,000 years. In 10,000 years, there had only been 3 level 9 grand desolate masters. And the lifespan of a grand desolate master was only 1,000 years. Therefore, those level 9 grand desolate masters had already died of old age. Of course, there was no guarantee that a level 8 grand desolate master could quickly become a level 10 grand desolate master after taking some medicine. Therefore, Immorse wanted to continue to improve his strength. He wanted to become a grand desolate master as soon as possible. And the sea dragon clone would become a super desolate beast as soon as possible. In that case, he would be able to stand at the top of the continent. Thinking of this, Immorse had a simple meal and continued to kill. Although it was called killing, it was actually just a one-sided suppression. Bang 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 bang. The desolate beasts exploded again. The forest was dyed red again. The blood mist rose again. In Immorse's mind, the kill point soared again. This time he needed 100 million kill points to increase it again. Killing for 1 day and resting for 1 day, on average it was 2.5 million kill points per day. At this rate he could level up in 40 days. However, Immorse felt that it was still too slow. According to his logic, if it took 40 days to level up, why would he waste so much effort to come here? So this time he did not kill for 1 day and rest for 1 day. Instead he used up all of his draconic senses. After a day and a half he returned to the miniature world. After resting for 12 hours in the miniature world, he returned to the jungle. He continued to use up all of his draconic senses before returning to the miniature world to rest. Just like that, the cycle continued. The speed at which his kill points increased was 1/3 faster than before. According to this calculation, it would take less than 10 days, at most 30 days, for him to advance again. What Immorse didn't realize was that the total amount of dragon intent kept increasing as he continued to exhaust it. On this day, Immorse was flying forward while killing the mutated desolate beasts below. About 200 kilometers away from him on a mountain top, Li Yundong was in a daze. The group of 5 was looking down at the valley below. One of them said, "Isn't this the Snake Valley? Why can't I see a single snake?" Another person said, "According to the map, this is indeed the Snake Valley." On the other hand, a spiritual psyche master beside him had a solemn expression as he slowly said, "Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist." When the rest of the people saw the spiritual psyche master's expression, their expressions became somewhat dignified. The spiritual psyche master could detect things that they could not see with their naked eyes. Since the spiritual psyche master said so, it seemed that there must be many snake-type desolate beasts in this Snake Valley. The leader of the strong men said, "No matter how difficult it is, we must welcome back the Phoenix Master this time." When the rest of the people heard him say this, their eyes became fanatical. "Welcome back the Phoenix Master. Welcome back the Phoenix Master. Welcome back the Phoenix Master." The leader of the strong men continued, "We are only the first batch. Our main mission is to scout the way. There are 5 more batches of people coming later. When the Phoenix Master comes out, our Phoenix clan will dominate the entire continent. Welcome back the Phoenix Master, dominate the continent. Welcome back the Phoenix Master, dominate the continent. Welcome back the Phoenix Master, dominate the continent." These people were like fanatical believers. When the words Phoenix Master were mentioned, they were all energized. At this moment, the spiritual psyche master frowned and said, "There is someone 200 kilometers away." The rest of the people immediately quieted down. The leader asked, "Who is it? Is it coming for us?" The spiritual psyche master shook his head and said, "It doesn't look like it. However, he is very strong. Just by using his telekinesis, he can kill mutated wild beasts below level 6. At this moment, he is constantly killing these wild beasts." When everyone heard this, their hearts trembled. Is it a spiritual psyche master? The leader asked. The spiritual psyche master nodded. Yes. The leader asked again, how many people are there? Just him. When the rest of the people heard this, they were a little surprised. The Yama forest was extremely dangerous. Even people like them would only dare to enter it if they were in a group. Now this spiritual psyche master had entered the forest alone. Was he not courting death? The spiritual psyche master did not explain how terrifying the scene he saw was. This guy was like a killing god. Everywhere he went he was dyed red. A bloody mist rose. In all honesty, he could also use his telekinesis to kill mutated wild beasts. However, he could only kill level 1 mutated wild beast. Moreover, he could only kill mutated wild beasts within a range of 5 kilometers. Compared to this guy who could kill any mutated wild beast below level 6 within a range of 100 kilometers, his telekinesis was not enough. His telekinesis is very strong. The spiritual psyche master said solemnly, much stronger than mine. When the rest of the people heard this, their hearts trembled. Someone asked, will he affect our welcome back to the Phoenix Master? The spiritual psyche master replied, probably not. He seems to be only killing these wild beasts. Why would he kill these wild beasts for no reason? What good would it do him? The spiritual psyche master replied, I don't know, but he must have a purpose. The leader thought for a moment and said, as long as it doesn't affect our welcome back to the Phoenix Master, he can do whatever he wants. The rest of the people nodded. The leader said, send this information to the other teams and then we will go to the Snake Valley to explore. Soon they explained the situation to the other teams. The other teams also reached a consensus. As long as this spiritual psyche master did not affect their business, they would not provoke him for the time being. Once they returned to the Phoenix Master would be able to kill this guy with a single thought. Naturally, they would not have to worry about anything. However, these people did not know that they were already within the range of Immerse's detection. Immerse even knew the purpose of their trip by plundering their memories. At this time, Immerse was killing these mutated wild beasts while flipping through the memories of these people. As he flipped through, he sighed, so there is such a thing. Chapter 473. As Immerse killed these desolate beasts, he flipped through these people's memories. From these people's memories, he learned that there was a woman in the dragon clan of the Flaming Land 700 years ago. This person was extremely talented and became a grand desolate master at the age of 30. She was once seen as the only successor of the dragon clan. During one of her training, she discovered that there was an extremely powerful bird type of desolate beast on the Flaming Land. After she killed it, she obtained the blood of that bird type of desolate beast. After that blood merged with the blood in her body, her strength increased greatly. After that, she fell in love with a man from another clan. According to the rules of the dragon clan, regardless of gender, a dragon clan member was not allowed to marry another clan member. This woman refused to accept and wanted to elope with that man. In the end, when the dragon clan found out, they fought. This woman was so powerful that she defeated all 5 of the dragon clan's experts. At this time she was in high spirits and called herself the Phoenix Master. She also gained a group of followers. However, when she was fighting, the man she liked was killed by the dragon clan. In a rage, the Phoenix Master started to massacre the dragon clan. However, at this time, the dragon clan's patriarch accidentally activated the dragon blood in the Phoenix Master's body. Perhaps it was because of the dragon blood and the bird blood in her body. As long as the dragon clan's patriarch willed it, the blood in her body would boil, and even her meridians and flesh would be cooked. Only then was the Phoenix Master subdued. The dragon clan's patriarch killed the Phoenix Master in front of all the dragon clan disciples. However, in reality he did not really kill the Phoenix Master. Because the Phoenix Master was the dragon clan's patriarch's biological daughter. As the dragon clan's patriarch, his daughter had committed such a crime. If he did not kill her, it would appease the public's anger. However, if he killed her, how could he do it to his own daughter? In the end, he only made his daughter faint from the pain. Then he secretly brought his daughter to the Python Star of Hell. Because his daughter was severely injured at that time. Only the Python Emperor of the Python Star of Hell could save her with thousands of viper bile. The Python Emperor's condition was for the Phoenix Master to marry him. The dragon clan's patriarch had no choice but to agree to this condition. In the end, the Phoenix Master married the Python Emperor. and the Python Emperor cured the Phoenix Master. But because of the Dragon Clan's existence, the Phoenix Master could not reveal her identity. That was why he had been hiding on the Hell Python Star for so many years. Now that the Dragon Clan had been annihilated, the Python Emperor had died of old age. However, before he died of old age, the Python Emperor sealed the Phoenix Master in his grave, saying that she would accompany him in death. Now, these followers of the Phoenix Master were heading to the Snake Valley to enter the Python Emperor's tomb. Open the seal and save the Phoenix Master. Understanding this, Immorse didn't pay any attention to them. Who cares if you're the Python Emperor or the Phoenix Master? Even the Dragon Clan was destroyed by me, so what do you think you are? In the next 3 days he saw another 4 groups of people enter the Snake Valley. Originally, Immorse didn't intend to pay any attention to them. However, not long after they entered the Snake Valley, all the surrounding mutated desolate beasts began to head towards the Snake Valley. Within Immorse's probing range, almost half of the area was gone. This made Immorse slightly unhappy. He looked in the direction of the Snake Valley from afar. No matter what you do, as long as it doesn't affect me collecting killing points, then we will mind our own business. But now that you have interfered with my development, I'm sorry. Thinking of this, Immorse flew towards the sky above the Snake Valley. When he arrived, he used his dragon consciousness to investigate below. He saw that there were many snake-type desolate beasts in the Snake Valley below. There were some that were as small as 5 to 6 meters long and some that were as large as 1,000 meters. As long as one dared to go down the Snake Valley, one would encounter a venomous snake almost every 10 meters. At this time, the desolate beasts that came from outside the Snake Valley were fighting with these snakes. Immorse roughly understood some things by plundering the memories of these snakes and desolate beasts. It turned out that the Phoenix Master was very good to these snakes when she was alive. Therefore, these snakes had always wanted to welcome the Phoenix Master back. However, the Phoenix Master was suppressed by the seal, and these snakes didn't have the ability to break the seal. Coincidentally, these humans appeared at this time. They could break the seal, so these snakes naturally supported them. However, these mutated desolate beasts in the forest couldn't take it anymore. This was because they knew that once the Phoenix Master returned with her ability, she would lead the entire Snake Clan and dominate the entire Hell Python Star. At that time, the Snake Clan would be the dominant clan, and all the other clans could only submit to them. Therefore, these desolate beasts came to attack the Snake Clan and destroy them to break the seal. At this time, both sides were in a bloody battle. The Snake Valley was said to be a valley. In fact, it was a huge crack that was more than 100 kilometers wide and more than 5,000 kilometers long. If one looked down from a bird's eye view, they would find that this crack was like a huge wound on the Hell Python Star. It was also like a big mouth that was opening as if it was going to swallow the universe. At this time, in this huge valley, an intense battle was breaking out. At the southern entrance of the valley, thousands of mutated desolate beasts poured in. They flew in the sky, ran on the ground, and swam in the water. They surged over like a mountain flood. It was as if they were crushing dry weeds. As they ran, the ground shook. At the entrance of the valley, smoke and dust rose. Smoke and dust filled the sky. And from the other side, a large number of snake clans surged over. They formed a snake tide. Just one look was enough to make one's scalp tingle. These snake clans were of different sizes, long and short, and they were colorful. They crawled over the rocks, the river, and the trees. It was as if a huge colorful carpet was being pulled across the Snake Valley at high speed. The distance between both sides was quickly closing. 1,000 meters, 500 meters, 200 meters. When Immorse saw this, how could he let it go? Based on the current situation, if they were to meet, there would definitely be heavy casualties. How could this be? Whether it was the Snake Clan or the other desolate beasts, they were all mine. Only I can kill them. Thinking of this, his dragon consciousness moved. Bang 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 bang. Whether it was the Snake Clan or the other mutated creatures, they all exploded. In an instant, 1/3 of the Snake Valley was covered in blood and a bloody mist rose. The beast tide started from the front and quickly turned blood red. The snake tide started from the front and also quickly turned blood red. In this Snake Valley, the Snake Clan's density was already very high. Now with the addition of this beast tide, the density was even higher. Therefore, in a short 10 seconds, Immorse obtained 150,000 kill points from this first wave of killing. Immorse couldn't help but feel refreshed. Another 10 seconds. Bang 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 bang. A bloody mist rose together with the smoke and dust. As for his massacre, he continued. Soon the kill points in his mind rose crazily again. 300,000, 500, 000, 900, 000, 1,000,000. In a short minute his kill points broke through to 1 million. And it was still rising crazily. Chapter 474. Inside Immortal's mind his kill points were skyrocketing. Amidst the endless slaughter, this was the only thing he was paying attention to. What he didn't notice was the subtle changes that were happening to his body. His eyes were darker than before. So dark that they were like an abyss. As he looked around, an invisible pressure could be faintly emitted from his eyes. This was only the difference he showed in his human form. If he was in his bloodthirsty demon dragon form, this difference would be even more obvious. However, Immortal didn't know about all of this. Right now he was only blindly slaughtering. Of course, this state didn't mean that he was about to go berserk. The bloodthirsty demon dragon needed to kill in order to grow. From the moment he became the bloodthirsty demon dragon, he would never go berserk again. The kill points in Immortal's mind were still skyrocketing. It broke through 1 million in 1 minute. 10 million in 10 minutes. In just half an hour it had reached 30 million. If this continued, it would take at most 1.5 hours for him to level up again. However, as the saying goes, the road to happiness is strewn with setbacks. After more than an hour, Immortal's kill points broke through 70 million. At this time the entire valley was already flowing with blood. The cliffs, trees, flowers and grass were all dyed red with blood. The rivers in the valley had all turned blood red. Above the valley a bloody mist filled the sky. Even the scorching noon sun couldn't disperse this bloody mist. Whether it was the snake clan or the wild beasts, none of them dared to take another step forward. However, the snake clan and the wild beasts both realized one thing. That was, the dead wild beasts were all level 6 and below. If they were level 6 they would be safe and sound. As such, the wild beasts sent out more than 100,000 wild beasts that were level 6 and below. The snake clan also sent out more than 100,000 giant pythons that were level 6 and above to attack Immortal. With Immortal's current dragon will, if concentrated, he could easily kill any wild beast that was level 9 and below. However, if they were spread out, they would only be able to blast apart mutated wild beasts that were grade 6 and below. Now that over 200,000 mutant desolate beasts were charging towards Immortal naturally would not waste his time to blast them one by one. Therefore, with a thought, he teleported to the back of the beast tide. The dragons will once again spread out and blasted towards the beast tide. Bang 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 bang, the explosions continued. In his mind his kill points were still soaring. These desolate beasts were too simple-minded. They did not know that Immortal had the ability to teleport. With a single teleport he could appear behind them from the front, catching them off guard. Bang 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 bang. Immortal continued to bombard the beast horde. On the other side, the snake tribe was watching the show. Their goal was to stop the beast tide. Now that someone was helping them to exterminate the beast tide, they were naturally happy to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. But soon it was their turn to be frightened. That was because when the mutant beasts of grade 6 and above in the beast tide started to attack Immortal, they had already gathered a large number of mutant beasts. With a teleport, Immortal arrived in the middle of the snake tribe. He used the dragon's will to bombard the snake tide. The snake tide had no choice but to organize the snake tribe of grade 6 and above to attack Immortal. However, most of the snake tribe could not fly. Therefore, when Immortal flew into the sky, they were practically live targets for Immortal. They could not hit Immortal and they could not run away. They could only watch as their own kind exploded one by one. However, just as Immortal was in the mood to kill, there were hundreds of giant pythons that all swam towards Immortal. These giant pythons were green, white, red, and black. They were colorful. And each giant python was 1,000 meters long. They were more than 30 meters thick. Every time they crawled through the forest, they would leave a deep ravine in the forest. Hundreds of giant pythons came below Immortal. Then they all coiled up. It was as if they were quickly coiling into plates of mosquito coils. It looked like they were going to catapult towards Immortal. Immortal was also shocked by their operation. These guys were really stupid. They knew that he could teleport, but they still used this method to attack him. When he activated his teleportation, their attacks would miss 100% of the time. However, Immorse did not intend to activate his teleportation. Since they were going to attack him, he naturally had to let them know that the mountains were green, the sea was blue, the hair was black, and the hat was green. Of course, it was not his own hat. Then Immorse's right arm turned into a dragon claw. It directly slashed towards a giant python that was flying towards him. Suddenly, an invisible force slashed towards the giant python that was 1,000 meters long. Hiss! The giant python that was 1,000 meters long was instantly split in half from head to tail. At the same time, the invisible force slashed towards the ground. Rumble! A huge crack that was more than 10 kilometers long and about 100 meters wide suddenly appeared in the entire valley. The crack was bottomless. And on the ground, there were more than 50 giant pythons that were directly split into two. At the same time, the 100-meter-wide blood river on the ground was directly cut in half by Immorse's claw. The river water directly poured into the crack. This 100-meter-wide river poured into the crack for a full minute, but there was no sign of it filling up. A claw that broke the river. This was the wonder of a claw that broke the river. What was even more surprising was that the giant python, which originally had outstanding self-healing ability, showed no signs of self-healing after being cut in half by Immorse's claw. It was writhing and struggling on the ground in pain. A moment later it died one after another. More than 200 kilometers away, 5 people were looking over here. Among these 5 people, one was a spiritual psychic. The 5 of them were sent to guard. At this time, the others were preparing to break the seal and could not be disturbed at all. So they sent these 5 people to guard this place. Of course, they were mainly targeting Immorse. If Immorse came over, they would have to do their best to stop Immorse. At this time, one of the level 10 desolate hunters asked the spiritual psychic, "How is it?" However, he found that the spiritual psychic didn't seem to hear this question at all. Moreover, there was an expression of disbelief on his face. This expression made the others very puzzled. "Speak." The level 10 desolate hunter patted the spiritual psychic's shoulder. Only then did the spiritual psychic come back to his senses. Then he subconsciously swallowed his saliva and said, "A claw that broke the river." He said these 4 words. When the others heard this, they were still puzzled. "What do you mean?" The spiritual psychic replied, "He cut the river in half with a claw." When these words came out, the others were shocked. "What? This river is 100 meters wide and cut it in half with a claw? Is he a Grand Desolate Master? Even a Grand Desolate Master can't cut it in half with a claw. This kid, we underestimated him too much." Chapter 475. Immorse's claw broke the river, which made those people's faces turn cold. In the past, there had been people who could break the river with a saber or a sword. But they were all Grand Desolate Masters and very powerful Grand Desolate Masters at that. Now this guy was clearly just a desolate hunter, but he could actually break the river with a claw. It seemed that they had underestimated this guy. Quickly send a message to the boss and tell them to hurry up. If that guy kills us, we won't be able to hold on. When the boss breaks the seal and rescues the Phoenix Master, no matter how strong that guy is, he will only be an ant in front of the Phoenix Master. So, these people began to send messages to their boss in a hurry. At the same time, more than 300 kilometers away from them, more than 20 people were busy in front of a mountain peak at the end of the Snake Valley. This mountain peak was the mausoleum of the Snake Emperor. Their Phoenix Master was buried here with the Snake Emperor. Moreover, the Snake Emperor had set up a formation here that ordinary people couldn't break. It was even more impossible for the Phoenix Master to escape from inside. These people had been busy here for more than 2 days, but they still couldn't break the formation. At this time, the leader received a message from the front. After reading it, he cursed, "Damn it." The others asked, "What's wrong, boss?" The leader turned his multifunctional watch over. When everyone saw the message, they all frowned. "I told you this guy is not easy to deal with. What do we do now?" "Boss. Boss, we are the only followers of the Phoenix Master. If we fail this time or even die in the hands of that guy, then no one will ever save the Phoenix Master in the future." Hearing this, the leader shook his head. "In short, if he doesn't attack, everything will be fine. If he really attacks, we can only fight with our lives on the line. Fight with our lives on the line. Fight with our lives on the line. For the Phoenix Master." The rest of the people spoke one after another. The leader encouraged everyone again. However, we have found some clues now. When we break the seal and welcome the Phoenix Master, that guy won't be a threat at all. Hearing this, everyone's eyes were filled with fanaticism. Immortal was currently in the middle of a battle, so he naturally did not pay attention to these things. After breaking the river with one claw, he slashed out with another claw. Schwa! Dozens of giant pythons were directly cut in half. Swish! Swish! With a wave of his right claw, the giant pythons were sliced apart. In front of Immortal, more than 100 giant pythons, which were equivalent to rank 10 desolate hunters, could not even last half a minute. When the rest of the giant pythons saw this, they no longer dared to attack Immortal. As for those people who were 200 kilometers away, they all gasped when they saw this scene. Good heavens, this is equivalent to one person fighting against 100 hunters. This guy is too abnormal. Could it be a Grand Desolate Master? That's impossible. The aura he released during the battle was clearly that of a level 7 Desolate Hunter. How can a level 7 Desolate Hunter be so terrifying? I won't believe it even if you beat me to death. After Immortal killed the giant pythons, he planned to continue killing the snakes and beasts. However, at this moment, from the mountain peak not far away, a shocking roar could be heard. Roar. The next moment, rumble. The mountain peak collapsed with a loud bang. Huge rocks tens of meters high rolled down from the mountain peak with a loud bang. They smashed into the blood river at the foot of the mountain, splashing up hundreds of meters high. Rubble fell down one after another. Those mutated desolate beasts were all crushed. And those giant pythons were also crushed in half. For a moment, screams, and wails resounded throughout the entire valley. Among the flying rocks, a figure suddenly jumped out. This figure was actually more than 2,000 meters long. It was actually a giant python with a length of 2,000 meters. This giant python was nearly 100 meters thick. On its body there were scales the size of houses. Under the sunlight they shone with a blood-red light. Its pair of eyes shone with a cold light. When it opened its mouth, a pair of sharp teeth were like a pair of silver-white arrows. At the same time as it opened its mouth, a dark green liquid was sprayed at Immortal at an extremely fast speed. Immortal's dragon consciousness had already enveloped this giant python. His figure flashed as he dodged the dark green liquid. At the same time he was also slightly shocked. This giant python was actually a strong mutated desolate beast. It was equivalent to a desolate master. Originally, on this planet, a strong mutated desolate beast that was equivalent to a desolate master would not appear. But now, this strong mutated desolate beast had appeared in front of Immortal just like that. However, although Immortal was a little surprised, he did not feel that it was unexpected. After all, it was not like he had never seen creatures in the hunting ground whose level exceeded the hunting ground's setting. He dodged the giant python's venom attack. Unexpectedly, this giant python's body flipped forward. From its neck, a withered head actually grew out. Two-headed giant python. 2 heads, 2 huge mouths, each shot out 2 streams of venom. Immortal's figure flashed again and dodged the 2 streams of venom. These 2 streams of venom were dodged by Immortal and landed on the cliff behind him. The cliff was instantly corroded, forming 2 huge pits with a diameter of more than 50 meters. It could be seen how terrifying this giant python's venom was. Immortal was also secretly shocked. If he was touched by the venom, he would be melted in the end. That giant python's 2 consecutive attacks did not hit Immortal. Its body flipped forward again. Another head flipped up from its neck. 3 heads, 3 huge mouths and 3 streams of venom were sprayed out. However, to Immortal this was simply child's play. This giant python had 3 heads, but he did not expect its intelligence to be so high. This kind of attack was simply a joke. Soon that giant python saw that it could not hit Immortal. It raised its head from under its neck again. 4 heads, 5 heads, 6 heads. 8 heads, 9 heads. In the end it actually grew 9 heads. Each head was more than 50 meters wide. And when these heads opened the blood-red folds of flesh at the back of their heads, it was even more terrifying. However, even if Immortal had 9 heads, it was still quite easy for him to hide. He kept dodging the attacks of these heads. At the same time his sharp claws slashed down. Swish! An invisible force slashed down at the giant python below. Clang, 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 there was the sound of metal clashing. A crack appeared on the huge scales on the surface of the giant python's body. But that was all. It actually failed to cut its body into two. This surprised Immorse. One had to know that his claw could break a river. Now it couldn't even completely cut open the scales of this giant python. This guy's defense was really not to be underestimated. Chapter 476. Immorse's demonic dragon claw had always been invincible in the past. No matter how hard something was under the invisible force of the sharp claws, it was only a matter of a single claw. And now, this giant python's scales could actually withstand the attack of his sharp claws. It was really surprising. Immorse didn't know that this giant python had once received the favor of the Phoenix Master and had the blood of the dragon race flowing in its body. In addition, its snake scales had strong defensive power, so it could withstand Immorse's sharp claws. This 9-headed giant python was also very shocked when it saw Immorse break the river with one claw. It was afraid that it couldn't withstand Immorse's claw. At this moment, seeing that Immorse's claw only left a small crack on its body, it was immediately relieved. The 9 heads opened their mouths one after another. From the 9 huge mouths, hoarse hisses came out. Hiss, hiss, hiss. At the same time, the 9 huge mouths not only spat out venom. At the same time, it also spat out dark green energy towards Immorse. This dark green energy not only had powerful destructive power, but also had intense toxicity and corrosiveness. If anyone was sprayed, they would be like melted chocolate in minutes. Seeing this, Immorse's figure flashed and instantly dodged the energy and venom. At the same time, he had already arrived at an altitude of 10,000 meters. The next moment, his body quickly expanded. His clothes were torn apart. Scales appeared on his body. On his back, a pair of tattered wings grew. A long tail quickly grew out as well. In just 5 seconds, he had transformed into a giant dragon. However, at this moment he had changed compared to before. On his back, behind the previous pair of wings, there was another pair of slightly smaller wings. 4-winged demonic dragon. In the legends of the Flaming Continent, giant dragons basically had 2 wings. 4-winged giant dragons rarely appeared. And giant dragons with 4 wings were all mutated dragons that had reached the peak of their combat strength. As a bloodthirsty demonic dragon, the more Immorse killed, the more likely it was for him to mutate. In the past few days he had slaughtered at least 80 million mutated desolate beasts, snakes and ghouls, if not 100 million. Such a frenzied slaughter finally caused his demonic dragon body to mutate. He had become a 4-winged demonic dragon. A 4-winged demonic dragon's combat power far exceeded that of a giant dragon of the same level. To give a simple example, a Tier 1 4-winged mystic dragon could easily kill a Tier 4 colossal dragon that was 3 tiers above it. In addition to Immorse's various skills and powerful dragon will. Now he could easily kill other giant dragons that were 5 levels above him. Of course, this was referring to powerful giant dragons. If he was compared to humans or mutated desolate beasts, after transforming into a 4-winged demonic dragon, he would be able to kill a rank 7 Grand Desolate Master without any pressure. Roar. Immorse couldn't help but let loose an excited roar as he sensed the surging energy within his body. Its 170-meter-long body seemed somewhat small compared to the 2,000-meter-long python on the ground. However, on the ground, the 9-headed python that was more than 2,000 meters long couldn't help but tremble under this dragon roar. It wasn't just this 9-headed python. All the other mutated desolate beasts and pythons around couldn't help but tremble. After all, this was a real colossal dragon. Long Wei was vast and mighty and no one dared to disobey. At the same time, more than 200 kilometers away. When the 5 of them heard the dragon roar, their bodies trembled. They couldn't help but prostrate on the ground. Fortunately, they were far enough away so they could barely hold on. One of them was shocked and pale as he asked, "What's going on?" Another asked, "What's that sound?" It seems to be a powerful desolate beast. But no matter how strong a desolate beast is, it's impossible for us to have the urge to worship it from 200 kilometers away. At this moment, the spirit psyche master next to them only felt that his entire body was soft. He couldn't help but fall to the ground with a plop. Those people were shocked and hurriedly asked, "What's wrong?" The spirit psyche master made a gulping sound in his throat and replied, It's a colossal dragon, a real colossal dragon, A four-winged colossal dragon. After saying these words, he seemed to have used up all his strength and couldn't say another word. The others looked at each other in dismay. A real colossal dragon? And a four-winged one? What a joke. The colossal dragons had been extinct for tens of thousands of years. And even if a colossal dragon appeared, it should have appeared in the flaming origin continent. It shouldn't have appeared in this mere hunting ground. This was like telling me that a colossal dragon appeared in your pigsty. But they all knew that this spirit psyche master rarely joked. Not to mention at this time. They realized that the situation wasn't right and asked the spirit psyche master, then, should we retreat now or? The spirit psyche master paused for a moment before speaking. No, the Phoenix master is at a critical moment. We can't retreat. I only hope that colossal dragon isn't coming for us. Hearing this, the others nodded in agreement. At the same time at the scene. After Immorse transformed into a four-winged colossal dragon, he circled in the air. Using the wind, he swooped down. Black ice dragon breath. A white dragon breath spewed out. A thick layer of ice immediately formed on the ground. Whether it was rocks, grass, rivers, wild beasts, or giant pythons, they all turned into ice sculptures. The nine-headed giant python also turned into ice sculptures from its tail to its head. Its 9 heads still wanted to make a final struggle before death. But it was already too late. Crack, crack, crack. In the end, its head was completely sealed in ice. This kind of ice seal wasn't simply sealing it inside. Instead, it invaded its skin, invaded its body, invaded its every cell, and invaded its bone marrow. From the outside to the inside, from top to bottom, it was crystal clear and cold. For a time, everything within a radius of 10 kilometers was frozen. Immorse's dragons will swept across. Whoosh! All the ice sculptures were shattered by his dragon's will. The 9-headed giant python's body also shattered into blood-colored ice cubes on the ground. Previously, the 9-headed giant python could still fight a few rounds with Immorse. But after Immorse transformed into a four-winged demonic dragon, the 9-headed giant python was instantly killed by him in a single move. This couldn't even be considered a warm-up for him. Now that he had transformed into a demonic dragon, he naturally wouldn't let these wild beasts and giant pythons go so easily. In the sky, he circled again, turned around, and flew down. Whether it was the giant python or the mutated wild beasts, they didn't even dare to escape under Immorse's long way. Immorse opened his mouth and spat out a red flame dragon breath. Boom! The flames instantly spread dozens of kilometers. Within these dozens of kilometers, there was a sea of fire. In the sea of fire, all the creatures were screaming, wailing, and rolling. At the same time, in Immorse's mind, the kill points were rising crazily again. Chapter 477. After Immorse revealed his demonic dragon true form, his battle could only be described with one word: unstoppable. All the mutated wild beasts and giant pythons didn't even dare to fart in front of him. They could only watch him descend from the sky over and over again. Every time he swooped down, he would take tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of lives. Slaughter. This was a true massacre. This was the true bloodthirsty demonic dragon. Amidst such slaughter, his evolution points were also skyrocketing. When he had killed more than half of the beast-tide and half of the giant pythons. In his mind, the system's notification sounded again. Slaughter points have reached 100 million. You can level up. Do you wish to level up now? Immorse didn't choose to level up immediately this time. There were probably millions of wild beasts and giant pythons below. He would kill them all first. So Immorse continued to move back and forth between the sky and the ground. In the end, he killed all the wild beasts and giant pythons. At this time, in his mind, his slaughter points had reached 110 million. At this time, his draconic sense swept across and found that there were almost no creatures left on the ground. Only then did he transform back into his human form. He changed his clothes and returned to the microspace. In his mind it said, "You can level up now." The system's voice sounded frowny face. "This level up will take 48 hours. Immorse nodded silently. At this time, Emma and Happy had already prepared several of Immorse's favorite dishes. After Immorse ate, he let out a long yawn. Then he hid on the soft bed. Not long after, he started to snort. At the same time, in the Snake Valley outside. Those people originally thought that they wouldn't be able to escape this time. Unexpectedly, the giant dragon didn't come over. Instead, after killing almost all the snakes and wild beasts, it transformed back into its human form and suddenly disappeared. Only then did they breathe a sigh of relief. "Quickly report to boss," the psychic said. Because they were too shocked and scared just now, they completely forgot to report to boss. Soon their boss received the news. Then his expression suddenly changed. "A giant dragon? And a four-winged one?" When the others heard boss's words, they were also stunned. "What kind of joke is this? This joke is a little too much. Maybe it's just a dragon-like creature." The giant dragons had long been extinct. How could they appear here? Even if there really is a dragon, it should be on the flaming origin continent. That's right. Up until now, all of the giant dragon fossils we've discovered have been found on the flame continent. We didn't find anything related to dragons in any hunting grounds. However, the leader of the group did not smile. He knew that since these people would send such a message, they must have confirmed it. He pondered for a moment and replied, "Continue to investigate. At the same time, pay attention to hiding. Don't act rashly." Then he said to the rest of the people around him, "We have to break the seal as soon as possible. Then leave this damned place." When the rest of the people heard their boss say so, they didn't dare to question him anymore. They all nodded and started to get busy again. They busied themselves for another day and night. Finally, at a certain moment, they poured a large amount of energy into the formation. The formation finally dissipated completely. At the same time, the imperial mausoleum where the Snake Emperor was buried also collapsed. The mountain, which was thousands of meters high, collapsed. Rocks flew everywhere and rolled down the entire valley. At the same time, the rocks completely covered the entrance of the imperial mausoleum. These people spent another half a day cleaning up the rocks at the entrance of the cave. Fortunately, they were all level 10 desolate hunters. The leader was even a level 1 grand desolate master. Therefore, it wasn't too difficult for them to clean up. After cleaning up the rocks at the entrance of the cave, they entered the tomb. In the tomb, they found the mummified corpse of a giant python that was thousands of meters long. The upper body of the mummified corpse was that of a human, and the lower body of a giant python. This should be the Snake Emperor from back then. This caused everyone to rejoice in their hearts. It seemed that the legends of the past were true. Since they had found the Snake Emperor, the Phoenix Master must be in this tomb. They spent another half a day looking for the Phoenix Master in this huge tomb. However, during this half a day, they searched almost every inch of this huge tomb, but they didn't find the Phoenix Master. Their two spiritual psyche masters searched almost every inch of this Immorse, but they still couldn't find the Phoenix Master. Not to mention the Phoenix Master, they couldn't even find anything related to the Phoenix Master. This made everyone feel dizzy. They had been preparing for hundreds of years. Before their seniors died, they had told them that they must open the Imperial Mausoleum and save the Phoenix Master. Now, after hundreds of years, the efforts of several generations, they had finally waited for the day when the Dragon Clan was destroyed. After going through countless difficulties and dangers, they finally opened the Imperial Mausoleum. However, reality gave them a heavy blow. The Phoenix Master was actually not inside. They couldn't believe this fact. Next, they searched the Imperial Mausoleum and its surroundings for 2 days, but they still couldn't find the Phoenix Master. Although they were unwilling, they could only leave. When they left, these people were a little dazed. They had worked hard for several generations, but in the end they found that the goal they were fighting for didn't exist at all. This kind of disappointment, this feeling of being deceived, made all of them feel an indescribable disappointment and anger in their hearts. It was also at this time that Immorse returned to the Hell Python Star after sleeping for more than a day and resting in the miniature world. At this time he was promoted to a level 8 Desolate Hunter. The Sea Dragon clone had also been promoted to a level 8 Strong Mutated Desolate Beast. In terms of realm, it was equivalent to a level 8 Grand Desolate Master. And the strength of the Sea Dragon clone could challenge people 2 levels higher. Therefore, the Sea Dragon clone was equivalent to a level 10 Grand Desolate Master. In the entire Flaming Origin continent, it could be said to be an invincible existence. Therefore, the sense of urgency in Immorse's heart was no longer as strong as before. In the past, in order to not be bullied and killed, he had to improve his strength as soon as possible. Now the Sea Dragon clone was already the pinnacle existence on the continent. Then he could take his time and slowly improve his strength. It had been a long time since he had this feeling, and Immorse still enjoyed it very much. After returning to the Hell Python star, Immorse's dragon consciousness swept across. He found that within the range of his detection, the entire Snake Valley was deathly silent. One had to know that in this Snake Valley there were snakes everywhere. Almost every few steps he would step on one. Now there wasn't even a snake. There were only some broken snake corpses on the ground and some broken limbs of desolate beasts. The blood on the stones, grass, and trees had already formed a thick layer of black and red scabs. Chapter 478. Immorse left the miniature world and returned to the Snake Valley. There was dead silence in the Snake Valley. It looked like a completely different world compared to the snake that was full of vitality earlier. Immorse shook his head and looked at the kill points in his mind. Kill points. 130027331000000000. More than 13 million kill points. The next upgrade would require a terrifying 1 billion. Immorse estimated that he should be able to kill more than half of the mutated desolate beasts on this planet. Of course, if he really did kill more than half of them, the 20th hunting island would definitely find out and interfere. After all, killing more than half of them would severely damage the ecology of this planet. The 20th hunting island would not sit by and do nothing. However, Immorse did not care. He had paid 30 million for a year. Within this year he could kill as much as he wanted. In theory, even if he completely destroyed this planet, there would be no problems. Hence, he continued to kill these mutated desolate beasts in the Yama forest. However, many of the desolate beasts in the Yama forest had gone to the Snake Valley. Now the number of desolate beasts left was much smaller. The speed at which Immorse collected kill points had obviously decreased. After more than a month he finally collected 100 million evolution points. At this time he had already killed 2/3 of the entire Yama forest. In the Yama forest, the number of evolution points he obtained was decreasing. Hence he could only leave the Yama forest and go to the 10,000 corpse forest. The 10,000 corpse forest was a place where ghouls gathered. There were many ghouls there. Moreover, they would often capture humans and kill them, hanging them on trees and letting them rot quickly. Hence it was called the 10,000 corpse forest. Everyone who was lucky enough to see the 10,000 corpse forest said that it was the most terrifying place they had ever seen. They did not want to go to the 10,000 corpse forest even if they were beaten to death. At this time, Immorse was heading towards the 10,000 corpse forest. The 10,000 corpse forest was a huge forest. In this forest there were no mountains or basins. There was not even a small hill. The terrain was very flat. The area of several million square kilometers was so flat that it was as if someone had deliberately leveled it and planted trees. In this forest, half of the creatures were ghouls. The remaining half were other types of desolate beasts. These ghouls could go without food for 10 days to half a month. Therefore they would not easily eat these desolate beasts. Instead they would think of ways to find humans. After killing them they would hang them on trees and let them rot. According to the information, there were hundreds of millions of ghouls here. Basically, their strength was equivalent to that of a desolate hunter. If he killed them all, he would be able to obtain hundreds of millions of kill points. Thus, Immorse quickly flew towards the center of the myriad corpse forest. Looking down from where he was flying. Within the 10,000 corpse forest, there were indeed many humanoid creatures hanging on the trees. Some had just been hung up and hadn't rotted yet. Some were half rotten. Some had completely rotted away. Under the sunlight, it emitted an unpleasant smell. However, not all of them were human corpses like in the legends. It could be seen that the human corpses were only a small portion. There were even more desolate beast corpses. However, most of them were humanoid corpses. It seemed that there was a huge discrepancy between the legend and the truth. After all, there were hundreds of millions of ghouls here. If they all went to eat humans, then there would only be a few billion humans on the entire Hell Python star. Wouldn't they be eaten up very quickly? Following that, Immorse began his massacre in the myriad corpse forest. As the ghouls weren't gathered like the snakes in the snake ghost, they were more scattered. Therefore, the speed at which he collected kill points was much slower. Immorse spent a total of 5 days or so before he killed all the ghouls and mutated desolate beasts in the myriad corpse forest. It was also on this day that he received a piece of good news. When he killed the last ghoul, he discovered that his dragons had unknowingly become dozens of times stronger than before. At this moment, A system notification sounded in his mind. Frowny face. Congratulations to the host for leveling up to level 1. Long Yanshi. Immorse was stunned. This was the first time he had leveled up unknowingly. Above the Long Yanshi was the Long Yanshi. And the Long Yanshi was much stronger than the Long Yanshi. Immorse spread out his dragon's will. It instantly covered a radius of 1,000 kilometers. Within 1,000 kilometers, nothing could escape his dragon's will. At the same time, after leveling up to the Long Yanshi, he had an additional skill related to dragon's will. Dragon's will seal. The formless dragon's will formed a huge formless seal within a radius of 50 kilometers. It descended from the sky. Anything below would be crushed into pieces. And the terrifying thing about this dragon's will seal was that it had two forms. One was an area of effect attack form. In its normal form, one seal could kill any creature below the Grand Desolate Master level. The other was a single target attack form. The single target attack form could be used to attack a Grand Desolate Master. Not only could it attack a Grand Desolate Master, but it could also absorb energy from the outside world to attack the target. It could even absorb the energy released by the target to kill the target. This was quite terrifying. The stronger the enemy, the stronger the dragon's will seal. Of course, in its single target attack form, it had a time limit. At most, it could only exist for a minute. Otherwise, if it kept absorbing, wouldn't it be invincible? It seemed that the 30 million spent this time was really worth it. Not only had he leveled up by 3 levels, but his dragon's body had also mutated into a 4-winged bloodthirsty demonic dragon. His dragon's will had leveled up to the Long Yanshi. If possible, he would rather spend another 300 billion to increase his strength. However, the target planet was already very limited in terms of the increase in his strength. At most, he would stay here for a few more months. After collecting 1 billion kill points, it was time to leave. Therefore, in the next 2 months, Immorse spent his time in killing. His kill points were also slowly increasing. On this day he had been on the Hell Python star for 90 days. It was also on this day that the system's notification sounded in his mind. Frowny face. Congratulations to the host for leveling up to a level 9 Desolate Master. Immorse was a little confused. He looked at his kill points. It was only 300 million kill points, far from the 1 billion needed for leveling up. Why did he suddenly level up? The system seemed to know Immorse's thoughts and replied in his mind. Frowny face. The Dragon Palace Desolate Master refining platform has successfully refined 10 Grand Desolate Masters. The host's level has increased by 1. Hearing this, Immorse finally understood what was going on. This could be improved. The system's voice sounded again. Frowny face. Next time, 100 Grand Desolate Masters need to be refined, and the host will be able to level up again. Immorse shook his head. Sigh. This system couldn't be praised. To refine 100 Grand Desolate Masters, it would take 1,000 days. More than 2 years, only 1 level up. It was a little useless. The system's voice sounded. Frowny face. After the Dragon Palace leveled up, the scale of the Desolate Master refining platform can be expanded. Hearing this, Immorse nodded in satisfaction. Seems like this system is quite humane. Chapter 479. Immorse had been on the Hell Python star for 3 months. Since the Dragon Palace refining platform had already refined 10 Grand Desolate Masters, Immorse's level had also increased by 1. He had become a level 9 Desolate Hunter. Looking at his mind, he needed 10 billion kill points to advance to level 10. And his current kill points were only a little more than 300 million. It seemed that it was impossible to advance to level 10 on the Hell Python star. He had to go to a higher level hunting ground. Thinking of this, Immorse left the wilderness and returned to base number 1. When he returned to base number 1, he frowned slightly. But it was only a slight frown. Then his expression was normal as he walked towards the base. Previously, Enwei had already ordered the employees in the base to be on standby and ready to serve Immorse once they saw him return. A beautiful employee immediately stepped forward and asked, "What's the matter?" "Sir, it's my pleasure to serve you. If you need anything, feel free to ask me. I'll try my best to satisfy you." Hearing this, Immorse looked at the beautiful employee from head to toe. He asked with a smile, "Any request?" The beautiful employee's face immediately flushed red. But she still nodded and said softly, "Yes." She had been working here for a long time and had met many people. How could she not know what Immorse meant? But Sister Wei had already said that she had to satisfy any request of this gentleman. She naturally did not dare to neglect. And since Sister Wei had said so, it could be seen that this gentleman's status must be very high. At the very least he should be on equal footing with the island master. If she was lucky enough to get close to this gentleman, then she wouldn't have to work hard for the rest of her life. But it was obvious that Immorse was just joking. Although this beautiful employee was beautiful, she could be said to be 1 in 100. But in terms of beauty she couldn't compare to Happy. In terms of figure she couldn't compare to Emma. In terms of femininity she couldn't compare to Anwei. Immorse naturally couldn't really have any request for her. Immorse returned to the room that Sister Wei had arranged for him and took a shower first. Then he came to the leisure area. He ordered a cup of good tea and slowly sipped it. He admired the scenery outside the window. Speaking of which, this leisure area really made people feel peaceful. He sipped his tea and enjoyed the beautiful scenery outside the window. It had been a long time since Immorse enjoyed himself like this. This was what life was like. While he was enjoying all this, Sister Wei had unknowingly walked up to him. He also ordered a cup of tea. She picked up the teacup and gently walked to Immorse's side and sat down. "What do you think of this place?" Immorse nodded. "It's very good." Sister Wei stroked her hair with a chuckle and asked, "What do you think of me?" Immorse nodded. "Yes, very good." Sister Wei pursed her lips and said, "You don't seem sincere." Immorse laughed and said, "Did I get sick from praising you?" Sister Wei took a sip of tea and said to Immorse, "Have you ever thought about settling down?" Immorse asked, "What do you mean?" Sister Wei looked at the huge lake outside the window and replied, "I'm old and want to live a quiet life. Are you willing to go with Sister Wei?" This sudden question surprised Immorse a little. He involuntarily glanced at the men not far away. Sister Wei was the dream of many men here. And she was the leader of this base. Now she took the initiative to say this to him, which was really beyond Immorse's expectation. "What? You don't want to?" Sister Wei looked into Immorse's eyes and asked with a smile. Immorse shook his head with a smile. "Sister Wei, don't make enemies for me, okay?" Sister Wei also glanced at the other men around her and chuckled. "I'm just joking with you. You've been fighting in the wilderness these days and your nerves are too tense. It's good for you to relax." Immorse nodded. "Well, thank you for your concern. But even if it was a joke, it still aroused the jealousy of the men around her. Sister Wei's every frown and smile was too attractive. Even such a joke made them unable to control themselves. If it were them, they would have agreed on the spot. Then Sister Wei asked again, "Are you going to leave this time?" Immorse nodded. "Yes." Sister Wei said, "You spent 30 million for a year and now you want to leave after only 2 months? Isn't it too much of a loss?" Immorse said, "Take the extra money as a tip." "Oh, you're so generous." Immorse shrugged. "I've always been like this." The two chatted for a while. When the sun set, Immorse returned to his residence. At about 3 o'clock at night, suddenly the doorbell rang. Immorse was very unhappy to be woken up by the doorbell. He got up and went to the door. Outside the door was a man. Immorse frowned and stared at the man without saying anything. He had seen this man during the day and he had a deep impression of him. Because every time Sister Wei appeared, he would appear with her. His eyes always showed his deep love for Sister Wei. Was it because he heard his joke with Sister Wei during the day so he was burning with jealousy and wanted to take revenge on him? Thinking of this, Immorse planned to plunder his memory and check it out. But at this moment, a dagger suddenly appeared in the man's right hand. The dagger was imbued with energy and stabbed directly at Immorse's abdomen. Immorse had been prepared, so naturally he would not be stabbed. His figure flashed slightly and dodged the dagger. Because the man used too much force, he directly fell into the room. He suddenly turned back and stabbed at Immorse again. This time Immorse did not dodge. Instead he raised his hand and kicked at the man's body. Bang! This kick was extremely heavy. The kick landed heavily on the man's abdomen. The man immediately flew out. However, halfway through the flight, the man's lower body quickly changed. Almost in an instant, his legs turned into a snake tail. It wrapped around the pillar next to him. Then with a jerk, his body flew toward Immorse again. At the same time, the dagger in his hand also flashed with cold light and stabbed straight at Immerse's chest. Immerse was slightly surprised. This man was from the snake clan? Was it because he had killed too many snakes so he was here to take revenge? But there was no time to think. Immerse's mind flickered and a chain instantly flew out. This chain was completely black, but it grew with the wind. At first it was only 2 meters long. But the moment it flew out it became more than 10 meters long. It directly wrapped around the man's body. Whoosh! With a sound, the man with a human head and a snake body was directly tied up tightly. That person used all the strength he had in his life to struggle. But no matter how he struggled, he could not break free. He naturally did not know that this was the dragon binding rope. It could even bind a giant dragon, let alone a mere snake. Chapter 480. Immerse used the dragon binding rope to tie up the person with the human head and snake body. That person continued to struggle, using all the strength in his body to break free. But this was easier said than done. This was the dragon binding rope. Can even bind a dragon, let alone a small snake like you. That person's thoughts changed at this moment and he begged Immerse for mercy. Don't kill me, I can tell you. Before he finished speaking, Immerse's sharp claws had already pierced through his head. Then one point. His head was like a watermelon divided into 6 pieces. That person did not understand why this human was so ruthless until he died. He did not hesitate to attack. Of course, he did not know that Immerse had the memory plundering skill. He had already plundered his memories. It was also at this moment that a beautiful figure suddenly arrived. This person was none other than Anwei. She saw that Immerse was still standing and did not seem to be injured. Only then did she relax. She asked, "Mr. Mo, are you all right?" Immerse shook his head. "I'm fine." Anwei frowned and said, "It was my negligence that allowed the enemy to sneak in. This person is from the snake clan. After hundreds of years of cultivation he turned into a human. Mr. Mo, do you have any grudges with the snake clan?" Immerse smiled faintly and said, "It's nothing. I just slaughtered the Snake Valley." Anwei was stunned. Slaughtered the Snake Valley? Mr. Mo, are you joking? Although she had never been to the Snake Valley. But after being here for so many years she knew how terrifying the Snake Valley was. It could be said to be one of the most terrifying places in the entire Hell Python Star. Even a grand desolate master like her did not dare to go to that place. Now this Mr. Mo actually said that he had slaughtered the Snake Valley. How could this not shock her? And he said it so casually. He called slaughtering the Snake Valley nothing. Wasn't this too exaggerated? After regaining her senses, Anwei said, "No wonder. These Snake Clan will take revenge for the smallest grievance. You slaughtered the entire Snake Valley, so they will definitely come looking for trouble with you. So I suggest you leave the Hell Python Star as soon as possible. Otherwise." Immerse nodded, "And there's no use for me to stay here now. Make arrangements for me as soon as possible. I'll return to the Hell Python Star tomorrow morning." "All right." While the two were talking, hiss, a hissing sound came from the other side of the wall. Both of them turned their heads at the same time. He saw a snake head the size of a human head poking out from the wall. Then the second, the third, the fourth, soon snake heads of various sizes appeared on the wall. The next moment, boom, the wall came crashing down. Amidst the smoke and dust, hundreds and thousands of snakes swarmed in from the outside. It was as if a colorful carpet had been pulled in from the outside. Several security guards were patrolling when they suddenly heard the roar. He hurried over. However, when they saw this scene, they immediately felt their scalps go numb. A chill ran down his spine. Even the scariest scene they had seen in their lives was not as terrifying as this. Several security guards hurriedly fled into the distance. At the same time they blew the siren. Beep beep beep, beep beep beep, beep beep beep, in the base's surveillance room. The security guard was leaning on the chair with his feet on the console, snoring continuously. When he heard the siren he was so shocked that he almost fell to the ground. When he looked up at the surveillance camera he suddenly felt his scalp go numb. F***CK. In panic he hurriedly pressed the alarm in the entire base. Woo, woo, the sound of an ambush alarm immediately spread throughout the base. Most of the people in the base were in a deep sleep. When they heard the alarm they hurriedly got up and looked out the window. When they saw the situation outside the window, Their hair immediately stood on end. This tide of snakes was coming from all directions. They would bite anyone they saw. Moreover, these snakes were highly poisonous. Once one was bitten to the ground, one would die within minutes. Even if the doors and windows were closed and they hid in the room, those giant pythons that were hundreds of meters long could destroy the house in minutes. The people who flew into the air to escape were smashed down by the giant pythons who were already prepared with their tails. For a time the entire base was filled with cries and screams. Immorse looked at this and did not make a move to save these people. When he first came, these people were not very friendly to him. Moreover, he had something else to do. When Enwei saw this scene, she could not help but turn pale. Oh no, the base's defense system has been destroyed. Then she pulled Immorse and said, Mr. Mo, let's go to the teleportation hall immediately. I'll send you back to the flaming land first. Immorse allowed her to pull him along as he quickly ran towards her. Soon the two arrived at the teleportation hall's entrance. However, at this moment hundreds of snakes behind them were not far away. They did not have time to activate the teleportation device. Enwei gritted her teeth and said to Immorse, Mr. O, hurry up and leave. I'll help you buy time. As she spoke, she had already condensed an energy weapon on her right arm. She waved her hand casually. Whoosh! A beam of energy swept across in front of her. As many as 50 snakes of various sizes were directly blown up by her energy. She slashed out a few more times and as many as 200 snakes of various sizes were blown up by her. Then she turned her head and said to Immorse, Mr. O, hurry up and leave. Immorse nodded. Thank you. As he spoke, he did not hesitate and turned to walk toward the teleportation hall. However, at this moment, Enwei's energy weapon suddenly aimed at Immorse's back. Whoosh! A beam of energy instantly attacked Immorse's back. At the same time, Immorse's figure instantly disappeared. When he appeared again, he was already behind Enwei. Moreover, there was a trace of a mysterious smile at the corner of his mouth as he looked at Enwei. Enwei's expression changed slightly. You saw through it? Immorse nodded. Enwei frowned and asked, How did you see through it? Immorse did not answer directly and only smiled faintly. You should think about how you were exposed. Enwei's face no longer had that charming smile of a woman. Instead, there was a trace of coldness. In her mind, she thought about where exactly she had overlooked. After thinking for a moment, she secretly shook her head. She felt that everything was done very carefully and there was no flaw in the fake path. How did Immorse see through it? Of course, she did not know that Immorse had the ability to plunder memories. When he had returned to the base, he had felt that something was wrong. He had already plundered many people's memories. In the end, he realized that something was wrong because of Enwei. Enwei already knew that Immorse had slaughtered the Snake Valley. Therefore, she had already made up her mind to kill Immorse. Moreover, according to the memories that Immorse had plundered, she had an even bigger secret. She was the Phoenix Master. Chapter 481. Immorse learned a huge secret from Enwei's memories. Enwei was the Phoenix Master. It turned out that Enwei had already broken the seal of the formation from the inside more than 50 years ago and escaped. However, the Dragon Clan was still around at that time, so she didn't make it public. Instead, she found a way to sneak into the human race. Firstly, she was beautiful and secondly, she was very capable. In the end, she actually became the leader of the base. Moreover, after so many years, her realm had also increased a lot. Her current true strength was already at the level of a grade 9 Grand Desolate Master. However, she didn't make it too obvious. She planned to go to the Flaming Land after breaking through to level 10. At that time, she would be the absolute peak existence of the Flaming Land. But at this moment, Immorse appeared. And he even massacred the entire Snake Valley. Although she was forced to marry the Snake Emperor. Later on, she had already conquered the entire Snake Valley. Therefore, all the Snake Clan in the Snake Valley were her people. Those tens of thousands of Snake Clan were also the foundation for her to conquer the entire Flaming Land in the future. After all, the Flaming Land was too big. No matter how strong she was, it was impossible for her to rule every corner. But who would have thought that Immorse actually massacred the Snake Valley? Almost all the core disciples of the Snake Clan were killed. How could this not make her angry? Therefore, she planned to make a move on Immorse. Moreover, she had heard before that Immorse had a lot to do with the destruction of the Dragon Clan. The island master even guessed that the person who destroyed the Dragon Clan was Immorse. Therefore she didn't act rashly. Instead she set up a slow-acting poison in Immorse's room. At the same time when she was chatting with Immorse last night, she also secretly drugged Immorse's tea. Moreover, she had seen Immorse drink the drugged tea with her own eyes. Even so, she was still worried. Therefore she deliberately let the Snake Clan attack the base. At the same time she bought time for Immorse and won Immorse's trust. Only then did she suddenly attack from behind. But unexpectedly Immorse dodged this attack. However, although she was surprised that Immorse dodged the first attack, the smile on her face didn't fade. You've been poisoned by the Snake Clan's poison. The more intense the exercise, the faster the poison would take effect. Let's see how long you can last tonight. As he spoke, energy beams shot out one after another towards Immorse. Immorse quickly used teleportation to dodge the attacks. Using teleportation, it was very easy to avoid these energies. However, he knew that he wouldn't be able to kill this woman just by teleporting. When the Phoenix Master saw how smoothly Immorse used teleportation, she frowned slightly. It had already been 3 minutes, but he still couldn't kill this kid. Logically speaking, this kid had teleported for 3 minutes, so his poison should have taken effect long ago. Why hasn't it worked yet? Until now, he still hadn't figured out the depth of this kid's strength. It seemed that he had to show some of his true abilities. Thinking of this, green scales quickly covered her entire body. His legs quickly turned into a snake's body. It had a human head and a snake body. Furthermore, her body was rapidly growing in size. In just a few seconds, it turned into a giant python that was more than 5,000 meters long. Moreover, between the gaps of her scales, a fiery red glow could be seen. It was as if her body was filled with magma. At this moment, the remaining people in the base were all shocked when they saw this scene. Even though they were basically all level 10 desolate hunters, when had they ever seen such a terrifying giant python? Immorse looked at the giant python that was more than 5,000 meters long. Species: Hell Python. Level 10 strong mutated desolate beast. Seeing this, Immorse was slightly surprised. After this woman revealed her true form, she was actually a hell python. And this hell python was actually a level 10 strong mutated desolate beast. This was equivalent to a level 10 desolate master. It wasn't something he could resist at all. Who would have thought that such a beautiful and feminine person would be the leader of the Snake Clan? Moreover, it was the most terrifying species on this planet. Hell python. Why was the Hell Python star called Hell Python Star? It wasn't because there were many pythons on it. It was because the most terrifying species on this planet was called Hell Python. However, according to the previous settings, the Hell Python's strength was at most a level 1 strong mutated beast. But who would have thought that after the Phoenix Master fused with the Hell Python's blood, she had already advanced to a level 10 strong mutated beast. She had directly broken through the settings. This was the most terrifying thing. However, it was obvious that this hell python was still not satisfied. The enormous mouth on its enormous head opened, and it was still in Wei's enchanting female voice that emanated from it. But at this time in this situation, this female voice didn't make people feel that it was charming at all. Instead, it made people's hair stand on end. She stared at Immorse and said, "I heard that you can transform into a giant dragon? Just right, I need the giant dragon's blood to complete the final evolution. When I get your blood, I will break through level 10 strong mutated desolate beast and become a super mutated desolate beast. At that time, the entire flaming beginning continent will be mine." The more she spoke, the crazier she became. Her huge face was full of malevolence. As she spoke, the ground around her began to rapidly turn into magma. At first, it was only 5 meters on both sides of her body. But soon, the magma's range rapidly expanded. 10 meters, 20 meters, 50 meters, 100 meters, and it continued to expand. On the ground, almost all the buildings, humans and snakes were swallowed by the magma. This was the most terrifying thing about the hell python. It could turn the ground within a certain range into magma. This range expanded as the hell python's strength increased. And for a 5-kilometer-long hell python like this, the magma it could create could reach a radius of more than 50 kilometers. And within the magma's range, all teleportation skills would be ineffective. Within 100 kilometers of the center of the magma, All flying skills would be ineffective. At this time the magma's range was rapidly extending toward Immorse. Seeing this, Immorse retreated while summoning the sea dragon clone. At this point only the sea dragon clone could suppress the giant python of hell. Soon the sea dragon clone appeared. Now that Immorse had advanced to a level 8 desolate hunter. The sea dragon clone had also become a level 8 strong mutated desolate beast. Its body length had also reached 1,800 meters. Although it wasn't as long as the hell python, its appearance was ferocious and full of majesty. At the same time the long way on its body spread out. This made the giant python of hell unconsciously feel a trace of fear in its heart. Most importantly, although the sea dragon clone was above the magma, it didn't seem to be affected by the magma at all. It floated there out of thin air. Its body was winding and full of oppression. Chapter 482. Although the sea dragon clone was above the magma, it wasn't affected by the magma at all. On the contrary, it was full of oppression. The python of hell couldn't help but feel some fear in its heart. However, this fear not only didn't make it recover, but also made it a little angry. On this planet it was the absolute king. It wouldn't allow another existence stronger than itself to appear. Fortunately, it could feel that although this creature was powerful, its aura was only that of a strong level 8 mutated beast. It was 2 levels lower than itself. Thinking of this, it suddenly raised its head. It roared to the sky. Roar! In the next moment a stream of magma spurted out. It attacked the sea dragon clone. However, the sea dragon clone's figure flashed and disappeared in an instant. When it reappeared it was already behind the python of hell. The python of hell was shocked. The spatial restrictions within the range of its magma had no effect on this creature at all. The sea dragon clone didn't wait for the python of hell to react and slashed at the back of the python of hell. Swish! The giant claw slashed and a huge crack hundreds of meters long and about 20 meters wide suddenly appeared on the back of the python of hell. Puff puff puff. In this huge crack boiling magma suddenly rolled out. The python of hell immediately let out a miserable roar. At the same time its body rolled trying to grab the sea dragon clone. However, the sea dragon clone was extremely agile. It quickly circled around the python of hell several times in a row. At the same time, it spat out a bluish-white dragon breath from its mouth. This bluish-white dragon breath was directly sprayed at the wound on the python of hell's back. Boom! The bluish-white dragon breath instantly entered the huge wound. At this moment, the magma in the python of hell's body was extinguished at an extremely fast speed and was frozen. One had to know that the python of hell's body was 5,000 meters long, which showed how much magma there was in its body. However, as soon as the sea dragon clone's dragon breath was released, all the magma within its 5,000-meter-long body was extinguished. In a very short period of time it was all frozen. At this moment, Immorse's dragon will moved. Whoosh! The python of hell's body, which was frozen for 5,000 meters, suddenly shattered with a bang. It scattered all over the ground. In the distance, the few survivors who saw this were extremely shocked. The giant python, which was more than 5,000 meters long, died in less than a minute after it had appeared. It was true that the more handsome one's appearance, the faster one's death. Immorse nodded at this moment. The combat strength of the sea dragon clone was far beyond his imagination. No one's will who was 2 levels higher than him. However, although this was unexpected, it was also reasonable. Although the sea dragon clone wasn't a real dragon, its skills were basically the same as Immorse's. Dragon breath's dragon breath is moreover. The profound ice dragon breath it spat out was the breath of a real dragon. Python of the python of hell was an ordinary creature. Of the python of this. Immorse, however, used his dragon will to scan the area. Bang 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 his for Immorse's kill points they soared once again. In the end his kill points stopped at more than 1.5 billion. At this time, with him as the center, a circle of death had formed within a radius of 50 kilometers. All of the snake tribe members within this area had already exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Immorse took one last look at this place, then turned and entered the teleportation hall. The remaining survivors made up about 1/3 of the total number of people. Seeing this, they hurriedly followed him into the teleportation hall. In the teleportation hall, they all kept a distance from Immerse. They were afraid that if they were careless and made this powerhouse unhappy, they would not even know how they died. A moment later, Immerse arrived at Hunting Island number 20. The owner of Hunting Island number 20 had already seen what happened on the Python of Hellstar on the surveillance screen. He saw the snake disaster on the Python of Hellstar with his own eyes. He saw the base being breached. He saw the disciples who went to the Python of Hellstar suffering heavy casualties. He was already in despair. One must know that these disciples were the disciples of the top forces on the continent. Although they had signed a life and death contract before going to the Python of Hellstar. If anything happened to them on the Python of Hellstar, it would have nothing to do with Hunting Island number 20. However, these big sects were often very domineering. If something happened to their disciples, they would not care about the contract. Moreover, if they were out in the wild, it would still make sense. However, if something happened in the base, Hunting Island number 20 would have a lot to do with it. Therefore, he had been praying that someone could bring these people back. Even if they could not bring all of them back, at least some of them would do. Fortunately, he saw Immerse's powerful attack later. He destroyed all the snakes. Although he could not save everyone, he saved 1/3 of them. This was already a blessing in disguise for him. Therefore, he immediately came to the teleportation hall of Hunting Island number 20. When Immerse walked out, he bowed deeply to Immerse. He said, "Mr. Immo, thank you. You are the benefactor of Hunting Island number 20. Immerse nodded and did not say much. He said again, "Mr. Immo, if you need my help in the future, just let me know. Hunting Island number 20 will not refuse." Immerse still only nodded. At this time, the island master of Hunting Island number 20 had the intention to get close to Immerse. Obviously, Immerse was the person who destroyed the entire dragon clan. With such terrifying strength, it was inevitable that he could easily crush any powerhouse on the continent. If he could get close to such a person, no matter what he did in the future, it would be smooth sailing. However, his idea was destined to fail. Immerse did not give him a chance to get close to him. He directly teleported away and left Hunting Island number 20. The island master of Hunting Island number 20 was slightly stunned. Then he smiled bitterly and shook his head helplessly. Were all powerful people so cold and aloof? However, although the other party did not pay much attention to him, he did not complain at all. Firstly, he did not dare. Secondly, the other party had helped him save 1/3 of the experiencers. It could be said that he was indebted to Immerse, so how could he possibly blame him? At the same time, those people who were saved by Immerse also engraved Immerse's face in their minds. After they returned, they must report this to the higher-ups in the sect as soon as possible. They must remind all the disciples in the sect not to offend this person if they met him in the future. Chapter 483. After Immerse returned to Hunting Island number 1, he began his leisurely life again. This time it was truly leisurely. The sea dragon clone's strength could already kill a level 10 mutant beast. This meant that Immerse was already the strongest existence on the Flaming Continent. In the entire Flaming Continent, he was the peak of combat strength. In the entire Flaming Continent, no one could threaten him with combat strength alone. Therefore, he was qualified to rest for a while. As for his next stop after resting, he had already thought about it. He would go to Hunting Island number 22 or even Hunting Island number 23. There were many strong mutant wild beasts there. Now every time he killed a strong mutant beast, he would get 10 kill points. Therefore it was the most cost-effective to go there. Just as Immerse was resting, his deeds had already spread among the powerful sects on the Flaming Continent. The strongest sect on the Flaming Continent, the Flaming Origin Ancient Sect. In the meeting hall, 5 disciples were standing at the center. On the left and right sides of the hall were the elders of the sect. On the main seat sat the sect master, who had been in seclusion for a long time and had just come out. All of them were looking up at a 3-dimensional projection in the center of the hall. This projection was Immerse. This was drawn by the previous artist according to the descriptions of the disciples and made into a 3-dimensional image. "Sect master, this is what happened," a disciple said. The whole hall was silent for a moment. An elder finally said, "Sect master, based on the current situation, We should try our best to link this Mr. Mo to the mysterious expert who slaughtered the entire dragon clan. Another elder nodded. Indeed. This Mr. Mo is very likely the person who slaughtered the entire dragon clan. Based on this, we should try our best to be careful of this Mr. Mo. If we can befriend him, then we should. If we can't, try your best to tell the disciples not to provoke this Mr. Mo. The sect master pondered for a moment and nodded. Send this three-dimensional image to all the disciples and tell them to avoid this person in the future. Try not to provoke him. If they provoke him, they will bear the consequences. The sect won't stand up for them. When the 5 disciples below heard this, they were all stunned. In the entire Flaming Continent, the Flaming Origin Ancient Sect was known as the top ancient sect. It was a sect that had been passed down since the era of the Great Dragons and had been passed down for tens of thousands of years. In other words, the Dragon Clan was the only one who could suppress them. However, the Dragon Tribe had always been residing in the Dragon Valley and had no intention of expanding outwards. That was why the Ancient Flame Sect was known as the #1 sect on the Flaming Dawn Continent. As such, no one on the Flaming Dawn Continent dared to provoke them. On the other hand, if the disciples of the Ancient Flame Sect were to cause trouble outside, the people of the other forces could only bear with it. Moreover, the flame-beginning ancient sect was famous for being protective. If their disciples were bullied, they would stand up for them. If their disciples bullied others, they would still stand up for them. Because of this, the Flame Dawn ancient sect was secretly known as the protective sect. But today the sect master had passed down an order. If you provoke this person, you will have to bear the consequences. The sect wouldn't stand up for these disciples. How could they not be surprised? But thinking about it, it made sense. In the face of an existence that could easily slaughter the Dragon Valley, the ancient flame sect had no choice but to retreat. If that ancestor didn't come to provoke them, they would be lucky enough to have smoke rising from their ancestral graves. How could they dare to provoke others? Yes. The 5 disciples cupped their fists in response. At the same time, the second-ranked ancient dragon sect had also passed Immerse's portrait to all their disciples. At the same time, they passed down an order. All disciples were not to provoke this person. Those who disobeyed would have to bear the consequences. The third-ranked Mystic Moon sect had also passed Immerse's portrait to all their disciples. At the same time, they passed down an order. All disciples were not to provoke this person. Those who disobeyed would be expelled from the sect. Among the top 50 sects, half of them had passed down such an order. At the same time, these sects forbade their disciples from spreading this news. If they caused the displeasure of an expert, then it wouldn't be a personal matter. There was a high chance that their sect would be directly destroyed. At this moment, Immerse didn't know any of this. Now that he was theoretically the strongest person on the Flaming Dawn continent, he could relax in peace. He planned to give himself a 3-month vacation. After 3 months, he would go to the 21st or 22nd hunting island. During the vacation, he couldn't always stay on the island. Now that he was theoretically the strongest person on the Flaming Dawn continent, of course he had to take him around and admire the various wonders of the Flaming Dawn continent. He wanted to admire the colorful world of the Flaming Dawn continent. First, they planned to go to the far east of the continent to admire the sunrise on the Eastern Sea. The sunrise on the Eastern Sea was the best place to admire the sunrise on the Flaming Dawn continent. The magnificent sunrise there was also one of the most famous wonders on the Flaming Dawn continent. On this day, Immerse had already teleported to an island on the Eastern Sea, East Pole Island. Those who came to admire the sunrise would basically come to East Pole Island. There was a tall mountain on East Pole Island called East Pole Mountain. This East Pole Mountain was the best place to admire the sunrise on the entire Flaming Dawn continent. Of course, East Pole Mountain was divided into 9 levels of observation platforms. The lowest level was where ordinary people could admire the sunrise for free. Further up, the second level was the observation platform for officials. The third level was the observation platform for hunters. The fourth level was the observation platform for third-rate sections. The fifth level was the observation platform for second-rate sections. The 8th level was the observation platform for first-rate sections. The 9th level was for the upper echelons of first-rate sects, and they had to be Grand Desolate Masters or above. Only by satisfying these two requirements could one ascend. In the entire continent, there were only a handful of people who were qualified to ascend to the first level of the observation platform. Immerse arrived at the foot of East Pole Mountain and asked about the situation. He didn't care. He directly brought Happy to a 5-star hotel to check in. At around 4 o'clock the next morning, he and Happy woke up early and arrived at East Pole Mountain. There was an almighty senior who had set up a seal on East Pole Mountain. They couldn't fly or teleport, so they could only walk up the mountain. The two of them arrived at the observation platform at the lowest level. The observation platform here was huge, occupying an area the size of dozens of soccer fields. However, even such a huge observation platform was already packed with people. Immerse held Happy's hand, and under everyone's envious gazes, they slowly climbed up the stairs by the side. Soon they arrived at the second level. The second level was the observation platform for officials. One had to show an official certificate to enter. The people on the observation platform were all very dignified. The officials who could come to East Pole Island weren't minor officials. However, Immerse didn't care. He pulled Happy up the stairs. The third level was the observation platform for desolate hunters. There weren't many desolate hunters on the Flaming Dawn continent. Therefore, the observation platform here was much smaller, and there weren't many people here. Happy gestured to Immerse, "Let's do it here." Immerse shook his head and lowered his head. "No matter what it is, I'll give you the best. So let's go to the top level." Chapter 484. No matter what it was, Immerse wanted to give Happy the best. Therefore he said to Happy, "Let's go to the top floor." At this moment, on the stone steps leading to the top floor, a beautiful woman who looked to be in her 40s was slowly walking up the stairs. She was dressed in white and looked like a fairy. When the disciples of the first-rate sects on the 8th floor saw this person, their eyes were filled with envy. "What a fairy! Who is she?" "Keep your voice down. Those who are qualified to go to the top floor are the upper echelons of the first-rate sections. They are either sect leaders or elders. Moreover, they have to be Grand Desolate Masters." "Hiss. So she must be the upper echelon of a large sect." "I know her. She is the sect leader of the third-ranked Mystic Moon female sect, Xianxia. No wonder she's the third-ranked sect. I heard that sect leader Qian has lived for more than 800 years and has already reached level 7 Grand Desolate Master. So strong." With Qian Xuanyue's strength, she could naturally hear the discussions of these disciples. However, she did not care. She came here today to reminisce. When she was young, this mountain did not have any restrictions. When she was watching the sunrise on the top floor of this mountain, she met a young man by chance. From then on, the two fell in love. Later, when she was in danger, the young man fell into thousands of ice caves and died in order to save her. Since then, she would come here every year to watch the sunrise on this day. At this moment, she came to the entrance of the top floor of the observation platform. A desolate hunter who was in charge of guarding the entrance of the observation platform saw Xianxia walking up step by step. He hurriedly greeted her and said, "Sect leader Qian, you're here. Please come in." As he spoke, he bent down and made a respectful gesture. Xianxia was an expert of the third-ranked sect on the continent, so these guards would naturally be respectful to her. Xianxia nodded slightly and then entered the observation platform. She was the only one on the top floor of the observation platform. She walked to the leftmost position and sat on the bench that she was used to. She silently looked at the horizon that had just turned white. The guards were whispering to each other. "Who was that just now? Why are you so respectful to her?" It was obvious that the guard who asked the question was new. The guard from before said, "Didn't you receive training before taking up the post?" The people on the top floor are basically the sect masters and elders of first-rate sects. You have to recognize all of them. The guard who asked the question smiled awkwardly and said, "That, there are indeed a lot of people. In the top 10 sects, there are 10 sect masters and over 100 elders." Another guard next to him glared at him and said, "That's right. No matter how many things there are, you have to remember them. These people are all big shots and we can't afford to offend any of them." She was the sect leader of the Mystic Moon female sect, Xianxia, a level 7 desolate hunter. It's said that her strength can be ranked in the top 5 in the entire continent. "Hiss, The guard who asked the question sucked in a breath of cold air. A guard next to him said, "So you'd better go back and do more homework. Otherwise you might lose your head if you're not careful. Moving my head is a small matter, but implicating your entire family is a big matter." The guard who asked the question nodded repeatedly. "Okay, I'll record everyone's names when I get back today." While they were talking, Immorse and Happy also walked up the mountain path. When the guards saw them, they took a few careful glances. They didn't know these two people. However, this girl was very beautiful. Even so, they still stopped Immorse and Happy. "I'm sorry, no trespassing is allowed on the observation deck on the top floor," an old guard said. However, although he used the words, "I'm sorry," he didn't mean it at all. That his tone was very tough. Immorse originally wanted to talk to them nicely. However, they were so rude and unreasonable as soon as they came up. Immorse didn't need to indulge them. His voice was slightly cold as he said, "We're all here to enjoy the sunrise. There's no need to divide them into ranks. Aren't you being too unreasonable by doing this?" That guard chuckled twice. "Unreasonable? You're right. In the East Pole, the island master is the reason. This is the rule of the island master, so we have to follow the rules." The other guard waved his hand impatiently and shooed Immorse away as if he was shooing away a fly. "Go, go, go. Go to wherever it's cool." Immorse sneered. He was just about to make a move to scare these people. However, at this moment Xianxia heard the noise. She couldn't help but turn her head. When she turned her head, she saw a familiar face. Her heart skipped a beat. She had never seen the owner of this face before. However, she couldn't be more familiar with this face. This was the person that the disciples sent back a few days ago. The person who could summon a powerful creature and destroy a level 10 mutated desolate beast. Moreover, it was very likely that he was the one who slaughtered the entire Dragon Valley. The Mystic Moon sect had also done an investigation. This person's name was Immorse, the island master of Hunting Island No. 1. And he had an even more domineering title, Dragon Lord. Although she didn't know why some of his subordinates called him Dragon Lord, he was able to destroy the Dragon Valley that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years by himself. It was not an exaggeration to call him Dragon Lord. Thinking of this, she quickly stood up and walked to the entrance. She said, "Greetings, Dragon Lord." This was the first time she met Immorse. She didn't know whether to call him Dragon Lord or Island Master Immo. However, after thinking about it, the title Dragon Lord was more domineering than Island Master Immo. Perhaps he would like this title more. Immorse was a little surprised. He looked at the woman from head to toe. He was sure that they didn't know each other. He asked, "You are?" Xianxia hurriedly introduced herself with a smile. "Oh, I'm the sect leader of the Mystic Moon sect, Xianxia." Immorse was puzzled. "Do we know each other?" Xianxia shook her head and said, "We haven't met before, but Island Master Immo, Dragon Lord, your name is like thunder to my ears." The guards next to them were all a little confused. Xianxia was definitely one of the top people on the continent. She was ranked in the top 5 in terms of strength. But now she was so respectful to this young man. Could it be that this young man was stronger than her and had a higher status than her? However, no matter how hard the guards racked their brains, they couldn't think of such a young man in the top 5. Seeing that the guards were still in a daze, Xianxia couldn't help but frown slightly. "What are you waiting for? Hurry up and invite the Dragon Lord in." She was actually doing this out of kindness. This Dragon Lord was a vicious and merciless person. He had slaughtered so many people in the Dragon Valley. He had also killed so many snakes on the Hell Python Star. Moreover, it was said that when he saw the disciples of the various sects in trouble, he had no intention of saving them. In the end, he had saved 1/3 of them unintentionally. From this, it could be seen how hard-hearted this Dragon Lord was. In the face of such a person, if he was unhappy, it was very likely that he would casually kill these guards. Chapter 485. Xianxia seemed to be reprimanding those guards, but she was actually saving them. Among those guards, the oldest one was a shrewd person. He naturally knew why Xianxia reprimanded them. At the same time, he was even more surprised by Immorse's identity. Xianxia didn't even dare to say that she wanted to protect them directly. Instead, she reprimanded them. It could be seen that this person's status was definitely above Xianxuanue's. Logically speaking, if someone with a high status wanted to enter the top floor, they had to report to the island master of East Pole Island. But at this moment he didn't dare to hesitate at all. He hurriedly stepped aside and apologized. "I'm sorry, Dragon Lord. I was blind to have offended you. Please forgive me, Dragon Lord. Please speak, Dragon Lord." As he spoke, he gestured for them to enter. A young guard next to him wanted to say something, but he was pulled back by another middle-aged guard, so he couldn't say anything. They stepped aside and Immorse couldn't be bothered to argue with them. Happy, he walked into the observation deck. Behind them, the guards looked at each other in dismay. Finally, the young guard spoke in a low voice. "Seniors, those two just now are..." The other guards shook their heads. None of them knew this person. The young guard chuckled and said, "It seems that you haven't done your homework." The guards glared at the young guard. The young guard continued. "Although I don't know who they are, that girl just now is really beautiful. She's definitely the most beautiful and pure girl I've ever seen." As soon as he said that, the other guards broke out in a cold sweat. They quickly turned their heads to look. They saw Immorse glancing at them intentionally or unintentionally. Their legs were about to turn to jelly. Based on their experience, a person who even the sect leader of the Mystic Moon sect had to treat with respect was either extremely powerful, or he was extremely powerful. For such a person, one's life would be in danger if he looked at his woman. This brat was simply tired of living. "What nonsense are you talking about? Shut your damn mouth. If you want to die, don't drag us down with you." At this moment, the young man also realized that there was something wrong with his words. The clothes on his back were instantly drenched. He glanced at Immorse and muttered, Sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. I'm sorry." The few older guards scolded, "That's right. You really don't know how to do things properly. Hurry up and report this to the city lord." They wanted to send the young guard away so that he wouldn't cause any trouble here. But before he could leave, another elderly guard called out to him. "Wait, I'll go with you. This matter was of great importance." He was afraid that if the young man went alone, something would happen. The young man also knew the importance of this matter, so he didn't dare to joke around anymore. He just nodded and said, "Okay." For such a big event, he felt more at ease with an older person by his side. At the same time, on the observation deck, Immorse and Happy chose a seat and sat down. Seeing that the eastern sky was getting brighter and brighter, the two of them focused their attention on the eastern horizon. At this moment, the sect master of the Mystic Moon sect, Xianxia, who was sitting not far away from them, was feeling nervous. In this situation, was she a third wheel? Should she leave? But if she left, wouldn't it seem too deliberate? Moreover, the Dragon Lord and Xianxia were obviously in the zone. If she caused any trouble at this time, wouldn't it be too abrupt? Who would have thought that Xianxia, who had lived for more than 800 years, would be so nervous and unable to make up her mind? The contrast between this and her fairy-like appearance was too great. In fact, she couldn't be blamed. Although she had experienced great storms and seen everything, she had something that she cared about. However, she had something she cared about, and that was her entire Mystic Moon female sect. Once a person had something that they cared about, they would be worried about gains and losses when they encountered something. Especially the person in front of her. He could even destroy the Dragon Valley, let alone the Mystic Moon sect. If something went wrong and made him unhappy, it would definitely be a disaster for the entire Mystic Moon sect. Therefore she had to be careful. Immorse didn't know what Xianxia was thinking. He originally wanted to try to plunder her memory. However, Xianxia was a full realm higher than him. He tried a few times but he didn't succeed. So he simply stopped plundering. At this moment, the white of the eastern sky had turned light red. Slowly, the range of the light red became larger and larger. In the end, almost the entire eastern sky turned crimson. A moment later, a red dot appeared from where the water met in the east. One could hear someone shouting from the observation deck below, "It's coming out, it's coming out." Immorse hugged Happy, and the two of them subconsciously leaned close to each other. Not far away, Xianxuanue's eyes gradually became blurry when she saw this scene. She recalled every sunrise that she had watched with that man. A moment later, a red arc gradually rose. It was not like the sunrise on Earth where the sun was so small. The sunrise here was very big. This arc almost occupied the entire sea in the east. Then it was a semicircle. Finally, a red sun that occupied almost half of the sky broke free from the sea and jumped out. The entire eastern sky and sea were dyed red by this huge sun. Looking around, their vision was filled with the sun. This scene was extremely shocking. When the people who were still noisy saw this, they all fell silent for a long time. They were all so shocked that they couldn't speak. When Immorse and Happy saw the huge red sun, both of them were deeply shocked. After a long time, a thought appeared in Immorse's mind. He asked, "Happy, do you want to watch such a sunrise every day?" Happy nodded. "Yes." Immorse said, "Then from now on, we'll watch the sunrise every day in Miniature World." In Miniature World he was a god. It was not difficult for him to create such a sunrise. Of course, Miniature World was still too small for now. He could only create such a sunrise visually. If he wanted to create such a sunrise, he would have to wait until Miniature World was upgraded in the future. After watching the sunrise, Immorse asked Happy, "Happy? Where else do you want to go? I'll take you there." When Xianxia heard this question, her heart skipped a beat. Hundreds of years ago, that young man had asked her the same question. He had said that he would take her to see all the beautiful scenery in the world. However, thinking of this, Xianxia could not help but hold her breath and wait quietly for Happy's answer. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.